Hello and welcome to this video, and this video is going to be entitled No One Wants to Listen to Your Music. Okay? Nobody wants to listen to your music, right? If you're a musician and you're making music and putting it out there, I want you to realise something here, right? That nobody wants to listen to your music. And also, if you're a music fan, right, you got to understand that nobody cares about what you like. Nobody cares about your opinions, okay? If you are working as an artist trying to get your music out there and you haven't got an audience, you've got to understand that people really don't care about your opinions. Right? You are a speck of dust floating in a chaotic world where in reality nobody wants to know about you or what you do or who you are, what you like or what you don't like. Okay? This world's a difficult world and we have to climb over each other to get to the top. And here, if we look at the mountain of music right like this, you're all down here, but we have to try and climb to get into that little bit at the top. And if you're in there, then people will care. But you know if you're in there. If you're not in there, don't kid yourself that you're in there. You can pretend you're in there, but you're not in there. Most of you watching this are not in there. Some of you may have been in there at some point, but you're not anymore, right? That's the way it works. It's dog eat dog. It's a greasy pole that you have to try and climb. And you know what they say, be nice on the way up, because on the way down, you know, you'll have to, I don't know, be nice again, I suppose, I don't know. There are thousands of old musicians who did something in the industry, played on a few albums, played in bands, and for the rest of their life, they've been looking for some sort of self-worth because they did that. Not able to let go of it, not able to move on. Some have, the wise ones have, but most no, they just pickle in their own self-loathing. Musicians full of self-hate who at once think that everything they do is terrible, but at the same time want to inflict it on the rest of us. Oh my God, what a mess it is. How do we negotiate ourselves through this mess? Well, I tell you, I may be being cruel to be kind here. I may well be. I may well be putting it to you, you know, straight. Okay? This video is for all those musicians, artists who are trying to get their music out there. I want to tell you something. We're going to start off from this point of view because you probably suspect it already. Nobody wants to listen to your music. It doesn't matter how polite you are. It doesn't matter how you know, delicately you put your stuff up on your social network. Say, I've got a new album out if anyone wants to listen. If you don't want to listen, you don't have to, but it's there if you'd like it. It's over there and on Bandcamp if you want to go and listen to it. But, you know, I'm just trying to co-opt this space where you're all talking about where you've gone on holiday and what dinners you've had and the fact that your mom's 98 years old, you know. And, of course, if you have got a mom who's 98 years old, get down that old people's home, stick a hat on them and photograph her, because that will do more in the cultural context of today than you will with your stinking rotten album that nobody wants to listen to. They don't want to listen to it. Right. I'm painting this as a terrible thing to start off with. This is going to be a long talk. It's a Sunday. Well, it's not a Sunday at the moment. It's actually a Wednesday. But I'm filming this to come out on a Sunday. You may well be watching this not on a Sunday, hopefully, because I need people to keep watching my videos, not just on the day they come out, you know, because I earn my living now out of YouTube. I spent my whole life being a musician, trying to earn a living after being a musician. You've got to be honest, most of it was earned by teaching music to other people so they could go on and curse themselves into this horrible world where nobody wants to listen to their music. But more recently, I've moved over to YouTube and I have an audience of people. It's not huge, but it's sizable enough to keep me going. And I earn a meagre wage out of it. I could just about support my family on the the money I make here, and that audience is, I've got my Patreon as well, and that's an audience of around about 2,000 people I can access at any time. I have got a Bandcamp, and nobody used to listen to the Bandcamp in the old days, but now I'm on YouTube, right, talking. There are a few people inquisitive enough to go over to my Bandcamp. So now I am lucky enough to have people, you know, listening to my music on Bandcamp. They're even buying albums. I make a little bit of my income now from selling albums. Quite ironic, you know, I spent my whole time trying to do that. Then I come on here, start doing some YouTubing, you know, dress up in silly clothes, act like a fool, wind people up, you know, and I get a lot of nastiness and hate from it, you know, because they say that I'm just making clickbait videos just to get views. Well, the thing is, I am, yeah, because that's how I earn my living now. It's through clickbait views, you know. I've had to get an accountant and, you know, get my money sorted out, you know, because I've had to pay tax, you know. When I was a musician, I used to do my own books. But I never earned enough money to pay tax with these UK tax laws. I could, you know, most of it, well, all of it went against my expenses, you know what I'm saying? Most of it did, yeah. Just have a bit of drink of water. Oh, what this? Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, this is the Rolex. Yeah. My accountant said that I had to buy something. Apparently, Rolex watches like this one are you know, you can put them against. Actually, you want to have a look at it? I'll just angle it down. I'm ever so proud of it here. Look at that there. Can you see it? There, my little Rolex watch there. I'm ever so proud of it. Right? You see, that is of value. That's of value. I've spent money on that, right? And this is something that people want. It's worth money, right? That's why people want it. I don't want it, though. Stupid bloody thing. Oh, capitalism. Blatant capitalism. Who needs it? We don't need it. We don't need to show off with bloody Rolex watches, do we? That woke you up, didn't it? That woke you up. It woke you up, didn't it? Right, why? Because I know how to do YouTube videos. Right, we're at the 7-minute section on, you know, at the 7-minute bit of the video. I can't speak, mind you. We're at the 7-minute bit of the video. And that's usually when you drop out. Well, you're not dropped out now because you would just go to sleep. Oh, Andy's on his usual rant. And then he smashed a Rolex watch up in front of us. There's people who just do that and they get loads of views and earn money just by smashing up Rolex watches. Oh my God, they smashed a Rolex watch up. Yeah, but they can afford it because they bought the Rolex watch with the money they make. So they smash it up and make more money. What are you trying to say? That there's people earning a living by smashing up Rolex watches? Yes. I don't know if there are, but they could be. I won't make that many views because I am not cheap to put that into the title. You got that for free, right? You got that for free. I'm not ashamed of using these tactics to try and get people to watch my videos. I will do anything to make this appealing to my audience. Anything goes as far as I'm concerned. Oh, hello, Lionel. How are you? I'm all right, Andrew. How are you today? I'm all right, Lionel. What you talking about? I'm talking about how musicians, right? Musicians, they put their stuff online on Bandcamp or something like that, and nobody wants to listen to it. No, that's not very nice. Why? It's a world full of horrible people that doesn't want to give a nice musicians the time of day. That's exactly that, Lionel. Yeah, exactly that. And nobody cares anymore about it. Don't they care? No, they don't care. I don't believe it. It's really bad. That is it. It's really bad. It is really bad, Lionel. What do you think you should do? I think everyone should be really nice and go onto Facebook right now and look down. And if they know a musician and they've just said they've got a new record out of Bandcamp, they should go on there and it says pay more than the going price. They should put £100 into it. £100? Yes, because the poor musician I feel sorry for them. Well, I feel sorry for them. So why are you being so horrible to them then, Andy? Why are you being so horrible? Because being horrible works on YouTube. Oh, no way, that's really nasty. That's what I brought you on. 'Cause I'm really nice, I am. Yeah, because lions, right? Lions, okay, like this fella here. Lions, you like that, Lionel? Yes, oh, he does like it. Lions, and you think they're all scary, like King of the Jungle. Yeah, oh, you want to give me a scratch up there? Oh, he loves that, you know. Oh, did you like that? Oh, that was very nice. It was very kind of you, Andrew. I like people who are kind. Yes, he likes people that are kind. He's not a big ferocious lion, this one. He's much more nicer and friendlier. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. You know, Lionel, more people just heard you sing that than most people out there putting their stuff on Bandcamp. I don't believe it. Yeah, it's true, Lionel. Anyway, I might bring you back. Can you go off and do something nice to someone else? I will always do that because I'm always nice. All right then, Lionel. Lionel represents my sort of inner niceness. It is there, believe it or not, but it's covered up by an outer crustacean, an outer crust of nastiness. Right, so I just want to reiterate this. Nobody wants to listen to your music. Do not send me emails saying, I'm in a band that you might like. You don't know what I like, right? You don't know what I like. I come on here and say what I like, but this is YouTube. It's fake. The whole entertainment industry's fake, isn't it? Yes, I understand where you're coming from now, Andy. That's what we think, is it? The entertainment industry's fake, isn't it? It's all become saturated with AI dross. Capitalism has come in and it's filled up all your social networks with adverts and people trying to sell you stuff. Honest to goodness, music can't survive in this world. No, it's so pure. It's so pure and beautiful, music is, that it can't survive in this modern capitalist world. It can't survive it, and you can utilise. This is my first tip for you. You can utilise the fact that you are an artist. I didn't know whether to do that or do the big capital A. I'll do it again with the big capital A. You are an artist. And you could sit there feeling, you know, a little bit above everybody else because you cannot actually have any cachet in this modern digital world of capitalist, shallow, AI-riddled dross, where the only way that you can possibly get an audience is to let go of your true artistic beauty, the inner beauty that you have inside you, you know, like your little Cinderella that's inside you waiting to come out with a fairy godmother waving their wand. You have to put that aside. You've got to come out here and bloody, you know, dress up as a chicken, or maybe use some sort of nice, lovely puppet to, you know, ingratiate yourself, you know, so you can come on by being nice, you know, or you can smash your Rolex watch up. An aggressive act, which is also like sticking your finger up to the man, the capitalist man that's bloody ruined everything. It's ruined everything for us creative artists. If we can get rid of capitalism, and I don't know how we'd live then, I don't know, we'd just have some sort of collectivist bloody, I don't know, thing going on where we're all just wear the same outfits perhaps, so nobody can see who's better than everybody else. No one would be better than everybody else, no one would be, and all the art would be the same. Right? Because the art would just be as good as you think it is. And if you think it's good, as long as your art's not racist or sexist or transphobic or against any of the identity groups that we have decided are protected from our gaze and opinion. Good or bad, that's fenced off. Because you may have thought art's about self-expression, mightn't you? But it's not. It's about serving the view of the angels. Imagine the angels up in the heaven and how pure their view is. Oh my God, they have a view that's so pure as they look out across the cosmos with their pure view. And some people, they align with that pure view. Lionel does. An innocent, a lovely little lion who just wants to be friendly with everybody. That's all he wants. And there's some people out there, they want to kill you and deplatform you. They want to threaten you. They want to threaten your life. They want to say, you should not be saying this, Mr. Edwards. You cannot say these things. You have to say what we say, what we think you should say, because we have the view of the angels, you know. And those people like Lionel, you know, when faced with me or that sort of power, you know, that illiberal power, intolerant power, saying, shut your face, you, we don't want to hear your opinions, right? They will kowtow to that, I'm afraid, thus rendering self-expression pointless. So your music probably had no point anyway, but if it does have a point, make sure it has the right point, because in the modern world it's got to have the right point. It's got to have the view of the angels, hasn't it? You know, so what's the bloody point anyway? If you've just got to toe the line, do what everybody else does, say what the establishment says you should say, not be this, not be that, you know, you can't make mistakes and have a bad opinion, right? You can't have an opinion where your opinion could well be challenged and then overturned if it's wrong. We can't have that old process, you know, that got us here into this bloody capitalist hell. You know, bloody rationalism and logic and counter-argument, you know, we don't want to be having that, because people do just have toxic opinions, don't they? And so the ethical morality really should be the view of the angels. We know we're right, and we sit there feeling proud we're right. So when these people put their music out there onto Bandcamp, and the world's not interested, unless they've got some sort of legacy, you know, old world, old music business things still ticking over. I have to some extent, you know, I'm of a certain age, played in a few prog bands, but I don't really believe that my audience I've got on YouTube really stems from that. It might have in the early days, but I feel like I've built my audience here by coming out and doing stuff and then sort of taking feedback about what people liked and then doing more about what people liked. I'm here really to entertain you, right? I'm here for you to go, oh, Andy's got another thing out, and you have to have a desire to go want to listen to what I'm saying. Yes, but Andy, you're just peddling hate. And there's loads of hateful people out there. The world's full of hateful people, isn't it? And that's what you're doing. You're attracting the hateful people to your channel with your stupid puppets and your dressing up and all that bit. And you pretend to be this and being like this and being like that. You know, once you were a good musician. Once in the old days, all I did was do music. I just did music, I made my albums, nobody was really interested, but I did play on a few progressive rock albums, and people were interested in those, that they did buy those, and that gave me a little bit of cachet into this, into the music industry, but nothing like this now. The platform here is, I can tell the difference, you know. Having 500,000 people watching you every month is a lot different to, you know, celebrating 80 listens on Bandcamp over a month. If you're lucky, 80 listens. What, you had 80 listens? Yeah, 80 listens. I mean, most of them didn't get past the 4-second mark, but the ones who did get past the 4-second mark, well, there was only 3, and I think one of those was me. Right, this is a dire situation. Now, of course, I'm speaking in a sort of ironic way on this video. And one of the things I want to do with this video, I want this video to be long. This is going to be a long video, right? The reason is because those who are going on to Instagram, Facebook, and doing 3 or 4 minutes of chat about their new album, or lamenting the fact that people don't want to listen to their album, or whatever it is, moaning about whatever it is, they're all trying to do the same thing. Everyone's trying to do the same thing, right? I don't have to, right? Most of you have switched off by now, 18 minutes. I usually, by the 15-minute mark, I've lost 80% of the audience. And now the 20% are here now. I've tried to keep you by being as outlandish as I can. I know how to do a YouTube video. I'm very good at long form videos. I'm very good at monologuing to camera. I wasn't when I started, but I am now. And this one, this is like bloody, you know, the Odyssey. You know, not Homer's Odyssey, I'm Nolan's Odyssey. And when I say Nolan's, I don't mean the Nolan sisters. They haven't redone the Odyssey. I wish they bloody had, but no, Christopher Nolan's done the Odyssey. It's 3.5 hours long, and I keep wanting to go and see it. I want to go and see it in the IMAX, you know. I think everybody does, being experienced to see it in the IMAX. Anyone wants to be in the Cyclops cave, don't they? That would be amazing. But it's 3.5 hours long. You know what Christopher Nolan's like. But people will go and sit through that, you know, they will. And people may sit through this epic, this Homeric epic Philosophy Sunday chat, because those of you who are here are probably searching for an answer. You're searching for an answer. And the answer is, Well, there's no answer because I just made a statement, didn't I? And I did that deliberately. I forgot about that at the beginning. I made a statement, and that statement was nobody wants to listen to your music. That's a fact. Andy, please tell me. I'm doing Lionel's voice. Shall we have Lionel back again? Because my nastiness needs... He's the dot in the yin of my yang, isn't he? There he is. Aren't you going to give them some sort of solution to their problem? I don't know whether I can, Lionel. I think the basic fact is that nobody wants to listen to their music. Don't they? No. Not at all. No. After they work so hard on it and put all their worries and their soul into the music. Yep. Oh, I feel sorry for you, I do. You latter. I think Andy really should be. He should be helping you and giving you some sort of, even if nothing can be done about it, he should be at least, I don't know, giving you some words of comfort rather than just. He's like rubbing salt into the wounds, isn't he? Rubbing salt into the wounds, and that's not nice. That's not nice, Andy. You're a naughty boy. Just stop it now. Stop it. All right, Lionel. I'm sorry. Well, I was doing his mouth thing when I was talking. But I'm new to this ventriloquism malarkey, Andrew, what's ventriloquism? It's like your inner voice. Well, are you sure it's just not my voice? Well, it actually is just my voice. But it's like I represent your soul. My soul? Are you sure you don't mean our souls? Well, do you really think we have a collective soul, Lionel? Yes, I think the world is full of our souls. I think you need to go. Yes, I didn't mean to say that, sorry. Right, so Lionel's gone again. He is pepping up the video as we go, and we're into 20 minutes, and I think maybe I'm going to change tack. And I'm going to address this for you. And I knew I was going to anyway, but I knew this was going to be an epic video. An epic video. And I knew it'd have to be quite serious. I tried to pack it with some sort of irony, maybe a little bit of comedy. Lionel, I love him. I mean, if you don't like me and you don't like my videos, come on. Rick Beato ain't got a bloody puppet lion called Lionel, has he? No! I have. Why? Because I know how to YouTube. I'm not saying Rick Beato doesn't know how to YouTube. Look at him. He's got bloody millions of subscribers. His views get millions and millions. If you want people to listen to your music, you need to go on Rick Beato. Then they'll listen to it. Why is that, I hear you ask? Well, you don't ask it because it's bloody obvious, isn't it? Because he has an audience. In the old days, when it really was a Cinderella theory, you sat there all beautiful on the inside but covered in soot with raggedy clothes on the outside, and then the record company along and they would wave their magic wand and all that glitter would fall onto you and you would be presented to the world, and then everyone would see your inner beauty. The inner beauty, innate talent, inner talent. That's something that you believe, isn't it? Inner talent. Well, no, it's all about work. Is it all about work, really? What makes you work so hard? I don't know. See, we do have these assumptions about art, don't we? And that's where I'm going to start. The reason why nobody wants to listen to your music is because our basic assumption of what good is in the arts, in music, is absolutely shite. That was my academic sort of approach to this subject. It's shite. We haven't got a clue what good is anymore, right? And so nobody can see the wood for the trees. That's the real problem here. Nobody can see the wood for the trees. They haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue. This video was This video was made because I saw a short video on Instagram this morning by a musical associate of mine, and they came on and said basically that we live in this world of AI dross. The only way that you can get your music out there is like acting like an idiot. And he spoke for all the wondrous beauty, that beauty in the inner soul that he wants to put out there. making the assumption that his music is beautiful and full of worth and deserves to be out there. He then mentioned his sort of legacy audience, because he's got subscribers on Bandcamp, and they've stuck with him for a long time, so that allows him to put records out because he has that audience. But he didn't have to get that audience by coming out and playing the clown. Whereas I assume, by the argument, that people like me have had to play the clown. I've had to say things that are wrong, basically, to a mass and audience. I've had to be politically incorrect at times. I've had to, criticise great artists and say they're rubbish. I've basically had to do clickbait. I did a video the other day called Argus by Wishbone Ash is terrible. As soon as it came out and I looked at the stats, it'd gone straight to number 1. It was rocketing away. Oh, thank God. You know why I said thank God? Because the YouTube algorithm has changed and my money is halved. Right, so I ain't making that much more I ain't making that much money anymore, and the idea that I can do some of the more outlandish things here, I can't fund it, so that's a bit of a worry. So I roll my sleeves up and I've started YouTubing, and the videos are doing okay. I'm hitting the spot again. This happens, you get lax. Well, I get lax. What I end up doing is putting out actual music on the channel. Kills the channel, but I've done it since day one and I will do it. But after I've had a lot of music on the channel, my recreation of Bitches Brew, which brought a whole host of British musicians to another audience, and I felt was artistically very successful. I was very pleased with it. It had an accompanying CD and album, and those have sold relatively well. People are listening not just to me, but to all these incredible musicians I brought into my studio. That's great, but check out the views on it. And then go and check out the views on that Argus video. Now, the Argus video is not doing as well as my videos used to, without a doubt, but I seem to be able to get to my audience with that. Why? Because I said the Argus album was terrible. And what did I then have? I had a whole bunch of people saying, oh, Andy, how can you say this? This is just clickbait. You're trying to wind the audience up. No, right? What I did was get the Argus album. I thought, I've never dealt with this album. Wishbone Ash, never spoken about them. Let's put this masterpiece on. I'll have a listen to it and then report back about what a masterpiece is. I expected it to be a masterpiece because of its reputation. After about 3 or 4 days when my daughter said, can you please turn this album off because it's boring, I switched it off and agreed with her. Now, if it was just any old album, I would just said, it's boring. But this is Argus by Wishbone Ash. And I thought there's great aspects I don't like about it, and it's boring. That's my honest opinion. It's not clickbait. That's it. I came on here, reported it to you lot, and that people seem to be interested in my opinion on it. They seem to get worked up by it. But for some, I mean, most of you could just go, Andy doesn't like an album I like. Who gives a toss? Who the hell's Andy? Who am I? Nobody. I just don't like it. Right, I don't like it, but the fact is my opinion about things seems to matter. And when people are getting riled up in the bloody comments about an opinion I've had, it's because they think my opinion matters. They wouldn't be riled up if they didn't, unless they are so bloody psychotic that anybody disagreeing with them in any shape or form, brings about that sort of vehemence. Now, that sort of attitude is usually only exhibited in sort of fundamentalist, religious, ideological, dogmatic worldviews, right? Okay. Now, on my channel, I have been trying over how many years? I didn't realise I was at the start. I was just making videos, but I've got a little bit of an analytical mind. So I started to think about what I was doing here, and I genuinely thought, well, how can I do something that's creatively valid on YouTube? What can I do? How can I utilize this to have it boiled down so people who get interested in what I'm saying may follow it right down to a Sunday, because this is the key to the channel, Philosophy Sunday. Here I am. No funny graphics, no musicians playing great music. I've got a puppet and I've had smashed up a Rolex watch. I've done those 2 things. But on the whole, I'm just talking to you. And I am today really slowly rolling out the idea I want to put across to you. I am slowly putting it out because I don't believe you will arrive at it by me just telling you. You have to be initiated into the esoteric through this conversation. If you are a musician, you've got to sit there and follow this through. right? You cannot just be told, don't go forward and on, it won't make sense, right? You've got to understand that when you really boil down to this, what my message is here, I am trying to talk about what quality is, what makes art music great. I believe that art is where human beings negotiate what is good. And to negotiate what is good, you at first have to negotiate what is beautiful. Every moral viewpoint is aesthetic. And it is not subjective, because if it was subjective, it would just be the moral view of an individual or artistic view. And aesthetics and morality are linked. So if I jump between the two, I do apologise. But I'm going to talk about morality here because it really is important. We have to negotiate our morals. Now, if you're a religious person, you will believe that your morality is absolute and comes from God. Now, God is the embodiment of the objective, right? And I respect it immensely, that idea. And I do believe in God, believe it or not, right? But what I don't believe is in the organised religions, which are the manifestation of that objectivity. What is that objectivity in reality? It's a negotiation. It's a negotiation between the subject, the individual, and the group. Now, art is a negotiation between those two, without a doubt. It is neither subjective or objective. So what's the machine in which this negotiation happens? I'm afraid it's popularity. In the same way as scientists will try and elucidate a bit of truth, and once they've got that bit of truth, they publish it, and then other scientists come along and they measure it all, and they try to use rationalism and empiricism to negotiate their truth. And then there's a collective truth growing out of the individual truth. Art does exactly the same, except, bizarrely, that rational scientific truth is actually wrapped up inside the aesthetic, moral, artistic truth. Because all of science is based upon a value that we have. And that value is at once the material universe, and at the same time it's the fact that the material universe is guided by some absolute law which we can reveal. The revelation of cosmic law can be seen as irrefutable proof of an overriding cosmic law, and those cosmic laws will go to a monad. And so again, science is the negotiation between the lack of belief in God and the belief in God, believe it or not. But you know, there are people at this juncture in human history that thinks it's far more about just being the material. It's far more about just being the subjective. We're just subjects, aren't we? We're the subjects of this universe. To imagine ourselves as objects in our universe is to throw ourselves into some postmodernist chaotic hell. All right? The 20th century has negotiated that into a whole bunch of ideas, philosophies. And some of those worked at the time, but often most ideas, most aesthetic viewpoints, most ideas of truth, they only have a certain utility. And then their utility becomes not used anymore. So Newton's theories on thermodynamics, for example, on physics, whatever, they're useful. You could build bridges with them and all that. But then in the 20th century, Einstein discovered stuff that sort of went against that. And then Newton's worldview had to change. Einstein's worldview becomes more important. And then artists and creative people, they try to understand Einstein's view and they react to it in an aesthetic way, which is what science should be about. When scientists discovered a truth about the world, yes, it has a utility for technology, but by the same token, it also has a reaction. We change our view of the world. So you have to understand that there is an ongoing cultural, aesthetic viewpoint of the world. I believe that we're in a crisis at the moment creatively. And I believe that a lot of the old ideas that were useful have now become dogmatic. And my old associate that was talking on the internet, it was so full of assumptions about what art is, who he is, how people negotiate, and so full of ideas that come in from the left. The idea that capitalism's bad, anybody trying to sell stuff or doing, online is bad, that the people who own YouTube and Google and Facebook are bad people, they're a group of evil people, and there's a hierarchy with them at the top, and they're abusing us down below. But of course, anybody with a brain, right? Anyone with a brain will see that we're actually living in the most comfortable, happiest, tolerant era in human history. But that era of comfort, tolerance, of having the time to make art, having the time to be able to, make albums and put them up on Bandcamp is very, very rare in human history. And throughout the rest of the world, there's many people that could not put an album up on Bandcamp. The very fact that you are putting your music up on Bandcamp is a showcase of the fact that you're at the top of the pyramid. You're actually in the top of the pyramid. The ones you're looking up to, I know it seems a long way up to Taylor Swift and all the ones up there, but you actually are in the top of the pyramid just because you're able to put your album up on Bandcamp. Right? We live in absolute comfort, at least I do. Right? I am now wealthy enough, for tax reasons, as my accountant said, to smash my Rolex watch up on camera. But of course, you're not stupid, and I'm not stupid enough to do that. That was a fake Rolex watch. Oh, I suppose you spent 30 quid on a fake Rolex watch. No, I haven't. I was actually pilfering through the local refuse tip for stuff. You're not allowed to do this. I don't know why. I always feel when I go to the tip, being someone who's lived, without much money for most of my life, when I go to the tip, I watch very wealthy people throwing perfectly good items onto the tip. And it winds me up, especially the electronic items. I once found a sealed digital radio. Right, I pilfered it, because you're not allowed to take it. But I sort of, put it under my coat, walked off, got it home. It's perfect. It's a digital radio in the house. Well, surely this sort of recycling. Why can't they put all the electrical items out, right? All the electrical items out, and if we want them, we can just take them. Because still other people don't want them. I picked up a television the other day, and I got it home. The bloke said it was worked, but it don't work, so the backlight's gone. I don't know how to fix the backlight. I wish I could, because it's a lovely television. Smart TV as well. But nobody wants to fix that. They just want to throw these things in the tip. The tip's full of stuff. It's full of stuff. Someone put on Facebook the other day, and I said this on another video, you can tell how much bad this has shocked me. It was like a 48 channel Allen and Heath mixing desk. I would have loved that in here. It would have a beautiful sound. Yeah, it's not digital, but it'll have a beautiful sound. It's a shame to stick these things into landfill. Anyway, I found a little bag up there on the tip as I was pilfering, and it got a few things in there, and one of the things was that Rolex watch, and it did work. But then I went to a local museum, and as I was exiting the museum, I walked into a bit of scaffolding, and the watch banged into that, and it exploded all onto the floor, and I thought, oh bugger, I broke my watch now. And I quite like walking around with a fake Rolex watch. But what I did then, I thought it would make a brilliant trick to play on my mum. So I went back to my house. And my mum was sat there, she's 86 years old, and she goes, oh, you've got a new watch, Andrew, you've got a new watch. And I said, yes, I have. And I said, you want to have a look at it? And she looked at it, and she went, oh my God, is that a Rolex? And I went, yeah, it's a Rolex. She went, how much does that cost? I said, doesn't matter, Mum. I'm going to write it off against tax. Well, you can't write a watch against tax. Well, you can if you do these things on, made up a whole bunch of rubbish. And I took the watch off, and as I handed to it, I just sprung, because I knew it would just explode. I just pressured it on the back, and as she grabbed it, it all exploded. She thought she'd broken it just by touching it. And she went, oh, like this, and it all jumped all over the floor. And then I laughed my head off. And then she said, oh, you're awful, you are. You're awful. Everyone in the room is now laughing their head off. I thought, well, I brought a little bit of joy with this watch. Can I bring a little bit more joy on my YouTube channel? So then the idea came up with I could smash it up on my channel to make a point, really, the fact that we value that watch. So people will watch a video just to see something of value smashed up. Okay? Because if you really examine that and then you look at your album that you've put up, that you're begging people to go and listen to that they don't want, it's because there's no value there. Now, you may think there's quality there, but the problem is if you apply a sort of neo-Marxist, hierarchical, power dynamic, postmodernist measurement, you start to think that anything that is popular, right, in some way has been tainted by evil capitalism, right? And capitalism is evil because it drags you down. So the point this guy was making was the fact that he's doing this noble thing and he's making beautiful music. He described his own music as beautiful. And he's putting it out there and he won't succumb. He is trying to gain traction on Instagram and Facebook with a video where he's saying, I don't do these things. He keeps doing it, you see. As time goes on, I'm realising I am in exact opposition to his worldview here, right? Even though we used to know each other, work with each other, I'm in absolute opposition. Now, when you oppose that set of people, they basically think you are an arsehole, as Lionel described, that you are trading in something which is immoral. I don't think he is. I think he's just having his opinion. I just don't agree with his opinion. But he will think that I am doing things which are unethical, right? And he will think that the unethical things I am doing is bringing unethical people, which is the vast majority of the great unwashed, right? Because I don't know if you know, but the left have turned on their own, haven't they? You know, it's a far more about a select elite that, you know, has the view of the angels. Now, I think that that's all bollocks. When I study the history of music, one of the things I noticed is that sometimes you can see that music is incubated, folk music can be incubated by being cut off from the rest of the world in some way. American folk music's a little bit like that in the 19th century. You have minstrelsy, that's the overarching sort of entertainment industry of the 19th century in America. But within the pockets that exist all over that great big country, there's all sorts of Cajun music and country music, and they're all different. And I'm pretty sure, like accents, you could have gone into a certain part of America and seen the music here, and then literally moved 20 miles and seen a different type of music. So the music was incubated. A mixture of all the elements that you've poured into America, right? But then they've sort of atrophied and mutated into these strange forms of music. It's my belief that all the influences that are in America, it's like a melting pot. I think the influence of black Americans as slaves and then as non-slaves is absolutely key. But the argument that they bring in something so special because of their skin colour, I find that difficult. I think human beings are just human beings. They all bring in excellent stuff and they all have their own thing that we should all celebrate. That's how I see the world. Sorry if that sounds racist to you, but that's the way I see it. I don't see any race as being superior or inferior or more creative or less creative or having the seed of a sort of soul or the idea of an essence which makes their input into this some sort of false hierarchy of goodness. It's the same thing I'm hearing coming from my old associate online. It's this sort of idea of the objective view of the angels. Now, on this channel, I've tried to deal with objectivity and subjectivity, and I explained what I think it is. It's only my opinion, but I think art negotiates between the two. We tend to want to exist in one or the other. That's what human beings are like. The sublime exists in the middle. And when we see the sublime for an instant, we go, oh my God, that's the sublime. And then we fall back into what we believe. And there's two ways of seeing the world. One would be the objective idea of art. Now, objective art is religious art, fundamentally. When you look at religious art, the aesthetic criteria behind that is absolute, right? If you paint Christ on the cross suffering, and it's going to be placed as an altarpiece in an altar in a building that's shaped gestalt cross, and you walk in and you walk in everything direction down, and then you see a perspective. People invented perspective in oil paint, and you can see Jesus Christ hanging on the cross. You can see the suffering. You could see the whole story in front of you. It's obvious that the objective idea of that is for you to understand Christ's suffering and understand why he's suffering and how his suffering embodies your suffering as a human being. So that you realise that the only true way out of the hell of your suffering is through him. That's the objective. You can put your own interpretations on it, but that's what the artist was trying to create. Now, they may have put other things into it. I'm not saying that's not in there. I'm not saying that the subjective aspects of the crucifixion, if you're thinking of Grunwald's crucifixion, there's aspects of that was created for a church it was created for a church inside a hospital for people with skin disease. And so that's the specific suffering that is being depicted on that, perhaps the most famous depiction of suffering in Western art. So all those things are apparent. I'm not saying that this art can't be subjective. My point is that the view that art is objective comes from the religious point of view. The view that art is entirely subjective is a very 20th century notion. It starts with the phenomenologists who believe that in lived experience, they seem to have this idea that you've got experience, then you've got lived experience, and there's a sort of truth coming from your subjective view that can be treated in the same way that you try and delineate objective truth through the Enlightenment's rational process of science. I don't think you can. I think it was a mistake to think that. I think artists can embody beauty, but I think truth is the truth. There is the truth. There's no phenomenological truth. It doesn't mean anything. From that, then you get the existentialists that are almost like an art movement that sort of wallow in that subjective view, and they torture themselves into seeing the world as being suffering and chaos without any meaning. And then you get that really given what I would say is the false academic structures of people like Foucault and Derrida and all that. Not to say these people aren't interesting and brilliant, and not to say that what the postmodernists didn't have an incredible influence on art, right? I think seeing the world from the world's got no meaning, there is no such truth, there is only power hierarchies, that view of the world, and it's all a social construct and you can deconstruct it. But all these things that we get from postmodernism were really powerful in creating art. When the artists, and you can see this if you watch the film The Rebel by Tony Hancock, he grows up in this sort of modernist idea of objective art, and he's trying to do his portraits. And it's funny because his portraits and his statues that he's making are humorous because they lampoon this modernist idea of the salon painting, which is all beautiful. When he goes to France, he arrives in the France of the 19th century, even though this is set in the 1950s, and he meets a whole bunch of artists who are acting like impressionist painters at the end of the 19th century, just right at the beginning of pulling apart that salon modernist idea of painting. But then he goes to the existentialist party, doesn't he? And that's where he confronts postmodernism. And the postmodernist ideas that are lampooned there are then reveal themselves when the whole world turns on its head, and his shite art is now decided, the intelligentsia think it's genius. Except in The Rebel, because of the time it was made, it had to put a caveat in that the cruddy art is actually great because it's by an artist who has innate talent, who is objectively good. And poor old Tony Hancock is not able to create art that is objectively good, even if he tries. that there is something abysmal about him and his inability to do that. Now, all of those have an assumption, that film has an assumption that comes from that incredible time it was made in 1960, where we're going from the modernist era to the postmodernist era, that very moment in time. A few years later, they could have made that film where the world did champion him, even though he was just doing any old crap, but it wouldn't have been so charged, because the truth is, by then we were aesthetically asking the question, if somebody without any art skill makes a painting and presents it in an art gallery, can that be art? So this subjective idea of art exists within postmodernism. You cannot exist in a world that has no rules and thinks that the only real truth in the world is power. And so by the 1970s, early 80s, identity politics started to change that around, and they start to bring objectivity back in to the idea of the power dynamic. And certain rules by which you behave emerge. And the people who are pushing this aren't like Foucault or Derrida, you know, who would have scoffed and hated these types and would have said, how do these people know what they are talking about? Nobody knows what they were talking about. They speak as though they know what the truth is, but there is no absolute truth. There is only the social construct of truth. You know, you could imagine them saying that to these types who believe they have the view of the angels. And anybody that questions that in any way is somehow committing a heresy. And in that, people are trying to create art. Now, most people are trying to create art under this structure. All right? Where they want to do something which they believe at once is an expression of beauty in an absolute form. They believe it should be out there and people should be listening to it. But by the same token, they hate themselves and everything they do. And they think what they do is crap. So what they've done is they have applied to it ideas of Platonic perfection. Now, all those ideas had been challenged rightly by the postmodernists. But now we have this idea that everything should be in the right place. Okay? And while this is happening, the technology, which is just existing, the technology is just waiting there going, we'll do whatever you want. What do you want us to do? We'll do whatever you want. Well, I want you to make this music perfect. And so the technology has not come about to make music making easier. It hasn't made it so you can make art anywhere. Those things are there. But overridingly, in terms of music, the technology has been utilised to make everything as ineffective and as perfect as possible. The fact that we fart and shit, the fact that we make mistakes, the fact that we have bad ideas, the fact that we are reactionary, the fact that all of those things, that all the great artists embody, great artists have never been good people. Because great artists aren't there to be good. Great artists are there to have another view of the world. And that view could be shocking, it could be destructive, it could be all of these things. Because in the cultural context, there are times, I'm afraid, where our idea of beauty does have to shift. And when it shifts, somehow it has to shift through processes that could feel destructive, dangerous, chaotic. When Jimi Hendrix got up at the end of Woodstock, and I've spoken extensively about Woodstock, at that moment in time, the world was changing and people were trying to reach out for a new way of living, a new utopia that they could aim at. And Woodstock happened, and all the capitalist constrictions, i.e. the ticket sales and the wall that went around Woodstock, all that stuff that is there, always at the music festival. The music festival is always the elite having a nice party behind a wall, right? And if you're in there, it's because you're part of the elite, right? With Woodstock, that collapsed. And instead of chaos happening, because the 500,000 people there had this idea of this sort of Rousseauian utopia, it didn't go too bad. Everyone stripped off and, washed all the mud off And right at the end of it, almost a day too late, when most people were going home, Jimi Hendrix gets on stage and he finishes it in a very American way. He finishes off that show by playing the Star Spangled Banner. But what he does is he imbues the Star Spangled Banner with the chaos of that time, creating a great work of art. Now, the Star Spangled Banner by Hendrix should be just a piece of obscure avant-garde art, and it's influenced by the avant-garde art. The art world has been doing this all the way through. No one's been watching, no one cares except for the elites, you know. But the Beatles then come in and they start to pull from avant-garde art, films pulling from avant-garde art, and it allows Hendrix at that moment in time to play the Star Spangled Banner and to play it with all the electric chaos that he can on his guitar, right? And he sets up a dichotomy between the idea of America and the American dream and the chaos of Vietnam, the chaos of Woodstock. And in that, it creates a sort of new, it holds America to account. That's what Hendrix does at that point. He holds America to account. And it says, you believe in these rights, and these rights are good, but you are not. You are not respecting the rights, the rights of the individual, the rights of the individual, the pursuit of, you know, happiness and whatever the other ones are, I can't remember now. Life, liberty and happiness. Life that you should be allowed to live, not be getting, you know, shot in some Vietnamese war over an issue you don't care about. Liberty, that you are free to say what you want, do what you want, have your bad opinions, have your good opinions. People just do what they want to say without having to worry about, you know, the world coming and getting them for it. And happiness, that we all have a right to be happy, right? And what's happiness derived from? Happiness is derived from love in the end. It's love that makes us happy, always. When people are in dire straits, not the band, by the way, but when people are in dire straits and they want to get through it, they have to go inside themselves and feel that aspect of love which exists outside themselves. Okay? Now, all of this it's a big setup for me about to really go into on this video why nobody wants to listen to your music. And I did want this to be, believe it or not, close to 2 hours long. I thought, I am going to create the ultimate Odyssey video on YouTube. It will be counter to everything that you should do, right? Because it could be that the worth of the world we live in now is still esoteric, as it always is. So I suppose what I'm doing as I come up to the first hour on here is I am trying to bury the truth of this within this huge monologue. Why? Because I don't believe I can say it straight. It has to be arrived at. You have to arrive at it through this route, through all this gumph and stuff I'm bringing up here. All these ideas that I'm throwing at you. You've got to subsume all those. But we are at the halfway mark here. This is the halfway mark, believe it or not. I'm going to switch off now and have a rest, have a walk round. And then in the second half, I will try and address what you can do in this world in which you find yourself. And the truth is, we might just have to really understand how we see what good is in the world and renegotiate that. And then you might find that the music that you're creating actually has no relevance and no place in the world. It's actually just almost like excrement being belched out by a failing Western liberal democracy that doesn't know anymore why it's so great. Every day I get emails from people who watch the channel. And I know they torture themselves when they do this. They think, I've been watching Andy for ages now, and I quite like his videos, and I like his take on music. I think I've got the same taste as him. And I've got my album, or I've got my band, or I've got this, and I've got that. And I'm going to send him an email and see what he thinks of my band. Okay? So that arrives in my email thing, inbox. And I look at that along with all the other, offers to collaborate on something they want to sell, usually AI, and I don't answer any of those either, or people sending nasty comments to me. You said you didn't like this, you've got it totally wrong, Andy, how can you do that? I hate you now, I liked you up until now, I'm never going to watch you again. And I've got all that going on, and in there are 2 or 3 people that have said, check out my band. I tell you what, I don't. I just don't. And it's not because I don't want to check out their bands, but when I did used to check out these bands, they were shite. On the whole, right? They were derivative, not well done, and full of a whole bunch of mistakes that amateur musicians make. So on the second half of this video, I think I've got to address the mistakes that musicians make, I think, when they're creating their art. So you've got to get past all of that. And then when you get past that, you've got to deal with whether the world needs what you're doing or not, right? And the answer will 99% of the time be, it doesn't want it anymore, right? Because there's an argument that the world doesn't really want music anymore. No, Andy, it can't be true. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know about that. But it has to be explored. And then finally, there's the way that what you've got to do to get your music to an audience, all right? Well, have I got to dress up as a chicken? No, I don't think you have got to dress up as a chicken. I actually don't think you have got to dress up as a chicken. So this second half will be in 3 parts. So this next bit will be what you are doing wrong. Now, the way I'm going to explain it, as I always do, like Christ did when he was out doing his good work, he would do it through parables. And that's how I teach. It's always through parables. I think that's the way to do it. And this is the This is the parable of submitithub.com or whatever it's called. I think it's Submitted Hub, isn't it? I don't know if it's still going. It's an awful bloody website. Somebody once showed me. I tell you who showed me. It was a music manager. And I went to this website and I signed into it and got myself a profile. And basically on this, what you did was you could submit your music for influencers to listen to. Now, back then I wasn't an influencer. I am now, right? And these influencers could sign up to there and they could get $10 just for listening to your track, right? They didn't have to do anything with it, but there was the hope when they did listen to it, they go, oh, I actually quite like this track, I'm going to put it on my channel. Now, me being an influencer, I know now no one's ever going to do that. But just dangling the carrot that could happen meant that there were thousands and thousands of groups, artists, bands on this thing. Now, you did have to pay this $10 to the influencers that are on there, but you could get credits. And the way you could get credits was by going to other people's music that was on there and giving it a review and a star rating. I found this very interesting, and I was teaching at a college, so there'd be all these kids in there, and they all want to know the answer. How do they get their music out there? So I used to show them this submitithub.com thing. So we put it on, and I go, pick a genre. They go metal or whatever it is, or pop punk, So say they do pop punk. And we click on the list, so the big list of these pop punk artists come up. Now, the first thing, none of them wanted to watch anybody without a video, so they were scrapped straight off. If you've got the choice between watching a video or just listening to music, most people choose the video. So we just scrapped all the music. I make them listen to some of it, but they wouldn't. They didn't want to. So we put these videos on. Now, some of these videos are crap, and some of the videos are okay. It's got nothing to do with budget. It was more imagination. But they would come in, and you would hear a perfectly good pop punk song. And the kids would go, oh, it sounds really good. Oh, I wonder about, because these kids couldn't get their music to be produced and sound as good as the stuff that had ended up on this bloody website. So they're really impressed by the production. Sounds really competent. They listen to it. Sounds like an older band I already listened to. Why would I want to listen to this band when I've always got the albums by the bands I want to listen to? And we would go through, and it would be hundreds of artists who were being like, almost like, spurned by my students. They were being pushed away because it was highly competent but incredibly derivative. In that moment, I hoped, or my intention was, that they would go, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. I am trying to be extremely competent but derivative. I like a certain set of music. I'm trying to make my music sound like that. When I get it to sound like that, I will put it out there thinking everyone's going to go, whoa, it sounds like Bring Me the Horizon. I like Bring Me the Horizon, but people don't. What they do is they went, oh, it sounds like Bring Me the Horizon. I like Bring Me the Horizon. I don't need any more Bring Me the Horizon. Why would I listen to these nobodies trying to sound like Bring Me the Horizon? They've done it so competently. In fact, in a way, it's probably even better than Bring Me the Horizon. I don't care because I've invested into Bring Me the Horizon. Now, the thing is, that was the actual band that was the subject of the chat that we had with the students back then. Now, the thing is, this shows a very important aspect of human perception. Is, yes, we have pleasure centres. Yes, when you put music on, you sit down and you actually consciously or subconsciously, but I think you actually consciously do it. You go, right, going to listen to the new album now. And you put the album out and then you sit there ready for pleasure. Why? Because you bought into the artist. You like them. They're an artist that you expect pleasure from. Now, say said artist has created an album that's not going to give you pleasure. You're still there trying to get pleasure out of it. You know what I'm saying? We've all done it, haven't we? You know, but, oh my God, I can remember Rush when they brought Grace Under Pressure out. I love Rush. They were my favourite band. I'd quite liked Signals. It had worried me, but I'd found stuff I liked in it, to be honest. And then Grace Under Pressure came out. And it sounded like a cross between The Police and, you know, U2 or something, with a bit of a Donald Duck singing in a helium high voice over the top. And I sat there, you know, what's the first one called? Red Sector or Red Alert? You know, I can remember it, Red Alert, Red Alert. I can remember sat there trying to pull the pleasure out, and I'm pulling the pleasure out. Where's the pleasure? And I'm going, there was a pleasure then. That bit was, there was some pleasure there, and I'm looking for it. That's what people do when they listen to something they're invested into. But when you're not invested in something like that, when you haven't got back to your cave and sat around, you know, around the fire, and loosened your loincloth or whatever you wear, you know, once you're there like that and you're relaxing, eating your berries, you know, in your cave, that's the bit when you drop your guard. But when you're outside, you can't drop your guard. So with us as human beings, we've got, you know, millennia of not dropping our guard. And so every noise when you're out in the forest, you're not there appreciating it. You know, nobody hears a jaguar approaching in the forest and sits there and goes, oh, listen to the lovely sound of its big fat paws crunching its way delicately through the forest as it weaves its way through with its stereoscopic eyes on me, you know, ready to pounce and rip me to shreds. No, when you're in the forest, you hear that little click and you're like, what is that? What's these sounds? So we have a part of us, our hearing is really designed in that stereo ears to find threat, stereo eyes to zone in on prey. That's what we are. Prey, threat, prey, threat. That's basically what we are. And so when people come up across music they don't know, they treat it as a threat. Is that a threat? Is that a jaguar coming to jump on me and kill me? No, it's music. But what music is it? I don't know. Is it going to get me in any way? It might test my view of what is good, and I don't want that done. So what I need to do is categorize this so I know what it is, so I don't have to deal with it. That's what people think when they hear new music. All they're doing when they have to actually listen to it, they never do want to. They don't want to because it's arduous to categorize. Oh, put it on then. Oh, you got to listen to this record, you'll love it. Oh, I don't really. Oh, go on. Can I have a go? It's like in the car, isn't it? I'm driving along with my kids, you know. There I am driving along, got John Coltrane on. Dad, can we put something else on? No, got Coltrane on. You never put Coltrane off. That's the law, kids. Now shut up. Oh, Dad, can't we put Stevie Wonder on? No. But you like Stevie Wonder? I do like Stevie Wonder. You've ruined it for me. Playing bloody Superstition over and over again. No, we're not having it on. Oh, Dad, please, please, please. Oh, go on. Actually, Dad, I've got a CD I wanted to put on. Do you want to listen to it? No way. I don't want to listen to it. What's this album you've got? It's by a new artist. No, I don't listen to a new artist. Child, what are you trying to do? Oh, please put it on. Please put it on. Why should I, child? Because you're our dad and you're a nasty person, you are. You're a nasty person. You can't be like not putting on what the kids want in the car. You can't be doing it. It's not right, Dad. It's not right to be like that. It's just not right. Andrew, what are you doing in the car? Why aren't you putting the children's on? Well, because I'm in the car and I'm the boss of the car. Yes, but you should be a benevolent boss, and you should put on the kids because they're little. You shouldn't be, doing that. You should go and put their music on. I think Lionel's right. All right then, kids. Can you, pass it over to put it on? Listen, what do you think, Dad? Well, sounds a little bit like bloody, I don't know, Soundgarden mixed with a touch of bloody Jamiroquai. Who are those bands, Dad? Oh, I'm doing Lionel now. The kid's voice is slightly different. Anyway, I've made my points. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to listen to new music. Why? I told you why. Because they have to categorise it. When they say, when you play yourself, do you want to have a listen to this? I made my new album. When you can actually force someone to listen to it because they're there in the room with you. Do you want to have a listen to my new album? Well, yeah, go on then. Yeah, put it on. And then they sat there. They're going to switch this off. They've got to switch it off soon. Right? What they will do is go, I quite like it. Sounds like Red Hot Chili Peppers crossed with a little bit of Soundgarden. That's what they will do. And when they do that, they feel like they've tied it in a neat box and they never have to deal with it again. So how do you get new music out there? The music business created a whole bunch of methods. Now, you have to understand the capitalist aspect of the music business. Everything we do, everything you do as an artist and everything that I do as an artist exists because of capitalism. Everything, single style exists, every single thing that you do musically, unless you are reinventing the wheel. And you may be a genius, but a genius is someone who reinvents the wheel and then people like the new wheel. Just reinventing stuff and doing something for new that nobody likes, that's the worst thing you can do. That's just called shite. All right? Geniuses can reinvent the wheel. You know how hard that is? Right? It's hard enough just to create a wheel that people want to buy. Because when everyone's categorizing and everyone just likes what they like, how do you get that across to people? Right? Now, it has to conform, and that's what people mean by being commercial. You need to put some singing on this. People don't like stuff without singing. Why hasn't it got a good beat? All of those things, and we all know what those things are. Now, all the things that people like is the good stuff. Western capitalism says it's the good stuff, and that's what people like, right? But the narrative, that ideological narrative that's come through in the 20th century, that was born in Woodstock, that utopian idea that has now atrophied into what it wasn't, because back then, as I explained, Hendrix was all about free expression and free, and this, and letting it all hang out, and we just be ourselves and we'll create this wonderful world. Now, when they found out that people be themselves, they become racist and they become sexist and they become all sort of the worst things about humanity. So now you've got to rein people in. You've got to watch what they say. This is postmodernism. Can you really control people by controlling what they say? Well, we believe so. Is that scientifically true? Because, cognitive science has found that the language is innate and it's got... No, don't listen to that. We're a blank slate. So there's all this blank slate theory, constructivist, deconstructivist. And this has come up with this idea that we can create truth, which is socially constructed. Truth is just language. It's just what we say or what we don't say. So if you want the world to be nice, forgetting the fact that your view of nice is now objective because you have taken the whole, aspects of human history and you've moved it into this social construct, except for these absolute morals that for some reason aren't part of your worldview. And this has become the overriding moral and aesthetic viewpoint of our schools, of our colleges, of our mainstream media. And that's what's breaking down at the moment. If you question that, then people think you are siding with the racists who are joining in and going, yeah, we don't want your, rules for not having racism because you're wrong. The black people are all rubbish and thick and shouldn't be going to university, And I have to be straight with you. I don't believe that at all, right? I just don't believe it at all. I am trying to champion something inside which I think is non-racist, which is kind to people. It's my own worldview, but that I'm a contrarian. So I've spent 30, 40 years of my life studying this and arriving at another way, I think, of doing things. And after a whole lifetime doing this, of being a contrarian, because I'm a creative type, I'm now on YouTube and I'm putting those ideas out there, and some people don't like them. And they want to shut me up because they believe by shutting me up, they can control truth. Okay? And that is the climate you're trying to get your art out into the world. Right? That idea is colouring the way you see it. And so those of you who are trying to put your music out there, you probably at once believe it's just all subjective, and if you like something, it's good. But then you will have this view of the angels, and there's this absolute ideas, moral ideas, which is that, the people with the right opinions, what they do is inherently beautiful, and the people with the wrong opinions, what they do is inherently bad. So if I come on here in my chicken costume and I'm doing my talking like this with the puppet, or whatever I'm doing on this, smashing up Rolex watches, whatever I'm doing on this mighty odyssey into this subject, whatever I'm doing is inherently bad. There cannot be any worth to what Andy's saying. I don't listen to him anymore. I blocked him. I was subscribed to him, but I don't subscribe anymore to him. No, I'm not going to watch him now. When I hear that, I don't object to that because I want people watching my channel. I do want people watching my channel, and I want the channel to be bigger, and I'll get to that in a moment. But no, I it's not that. It's because it's the intolerance of it. All right? If someone's watching my channel, I want them to find it compelling. Some of you may agree with what I'm saying. Some of you may not agree. Now, those who don't agree, they might come up with a counter argument, and they will offer that counter argument. Now I'm going to give you an example of that on the channel. Many years ago I said jazz all sounds the same, and I started to push the button that everyone knows that jazz is now shite. And in that, I then started to identify a lot of things wrong with jazz, that sort of elitist jazz college idea. This is the music, you put your suit on it now and you go and sit there at the jazz at the Lincoln Center with loads of money watching people play, worthy music because it's a recreation of Duke Ellington, or people play like Coltrane, playing the same licks, it's all got to be the same. That idea that had come out of that utopia, you ain't going to get anyone sound like Hendrix on a modern jazz album. No way. That's just never going to happen. Or the equivalent of that. So within that, I started to question the very assumptions about what jazz is, the idea that jazz is black American music and the black origins of it. And I came out aggressively, really questioning that, to the point where I made a documentary, as you probably know, watching this. Because of that, I came into contact with all sorts of different people. Some of them are bastards, and they attacked me and they attacked my family and all that type of stuff. And those people I really were able to learn about and how they operate. And I was able to compartmentalise them and eventually just go, they're twats, which is what's happened. I was deeply upset by it at the time, but I understand who these people are. And there is no point in saying, well, they're toxic, intolerant types that you will use anything just to try and deplatform you. They would try anything. They will report you for things that you haven't done, which is what they did. But other people, like, for example, who was once my nemesis, Truth Saviour, who questioned me, what the hell is this white, British person, talking about our music. And through chatting to the people who are more open to engaging in a discussion, I changed my opinion to somewhat. I changed my opinion. I still believe that jazz is the product of, all sorts of different cultural influences in America. And I don't believe that there's this false hierarchy, but the black influence is so important that it elevates their influence above all the others. I don't believe that. But I do believe that black American culture has been repressed in America and needs to be pointed out for what it is. And that I believe that black American culture as an influence within jazz is an influence that's wider than jazz. It's also, blues really has come out of that. It is the embodiment of that culture, the blues is, and the rejection of the blues by the black American community that happened in the 1970s somewhat, and the appropriation of that by white middle class musicians. All of that can be understood once you understand the special treatment, the special negative treatment that black American culture has had. That's what makes it unique. It plays no extra part in the creation of jazz, no more than, say, Sousa Marches does, or Western European harmony. It's exactly that, all those influences together. But there is something unique about black American culture, and it is the very nuclear physics, the nuclear reactor sort of pressure cooker of racism that has altered it. And so black American culture has something incredibly powerful to offer us in the 20th century regarding life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That refinement, that description I've just come up with there, and I'm still not at the back end of it, I will get to it, and in the end I will have my view of how this operated. That discussion, that ability to have that conversation, when I come out here, sometimes I believe I've got to be contrarian. I've got to throw it out there, right? Because that's the only way to get the interest, because then people come along and go, whoa, whoa, and they start to have the conversation. I just want to have the conversation. I'll alter my opinion because I'm not very dogmatic or ideological in what I believe. My opinions have changed all my life. I started off, I suppose, as a Christian when I was at school, then I became an atheist. Then I became a Gurdjieffian in my 20s, and then I rejected all of that in my 30s and became an atheist. And then in my 50s, I now believe in God. And I bring my version of what God is to this channel, and I try and communicate that to you out there. I try and have the conversation, but I don't think I'm right. I don't think any human being's right. I think that what we are doing is negotiating truth and negotiating beauty. Okay? Why am I saying all this? Because out there in the real world, right, nobody's interested in your music because it doesn't do this. It's not what the world needs. The world doesn't need music anymore. If you're at Woodstock in 1969, and there's 500,000 people, they're not on their phones. If they'd have been on their phones, they'd have been ignoring Hendrix. Most of them were ignoring Hendrix, but the ones that were in the vicinity of the huge PA that never existed before, that sort of amplification, was able to hear wafting across the fields this national anthem. It was also filmed, and it went out on a film, and it's the film that made it famous. So back then, the cultural landscape meant that music had an incredible power for embodying self-expression in its purest form. The Bob Dylan aspect of the singer-songwriter giving you their authentic view of the world was the other aspect of the rock and roll era. The authentic view, the view of you, that's phenomenology, your lived experience embodied in your song. Don't sing somebody else's song, it's your expression. Now, those out there that believe that their art is important is because, right, they believe that what they do is is the embodiment of their self-expression. So it has that self-expression. I have come and I've made my, it doesn't matter whether it's commercial or not, because it's expressing something. What is it expressing? It's expressing who I am and my worldview. The Bob Dylan singer-songwriter model has actually moved into certain aspects of experimental music, instrumental music. And it is justified because it is that person's subjective, phenomenological view of the world. This has also happened in our universities. The academy now has this idea that truth is your truth, and as long as you follow certain academic rules, you could create that truth and present that truth to the world, and your truth has to be respected. Why does it have to be respected? Because if you don't respect it, you will pull it apart. Right? And that is what those people find so upsetting about what I'm saying here. That's why they don't like it. Because I think culturally we've moved on. Nobody wants your self-expression. It's not needed. There is no point in having it. Because it's not really self-expression. It's just cliche. It is just habit. It is just the expression of the comfortable existence you have, where you have that time to do that, right? You can afford to support it. I used to say to my students that the most important aspect of the music business is sustainability. You have to be able to sustain your creativity. Why? If you're creating something that the world doesn't want, well, the world's just this capitalist state and all it's interested in is commerciality. That's the argument, right? I'm bad because I do clickbait. Right? I'm bad because I do these bad things. They're morally bad, you know, and it gets people looking. I say things and it pulls people in. Right? So saying stuff that pulls people in, people will say, oh, this is just clickbait. They believe it's a bad thing. That's an assumption they have. That's an assumption they have about the world that comes from everything I've just discussed over the last hour and a half. All right? I have given you a critique of the 20th century and ideas that were in embryo in 1966 were first naively expressed by the giants like the Beatles and the Stones and Hendrix and Miles Davis and Coltrane at the back end of the 60s. All that stuff that was naively expressed, a sort of utopian view of the world, has atrophied. And it's atrophied into a set of ideas that you are no longer allowed to question. Because if you do, this postmodernist outer layer of absolute view of the angels objectivity will mean that they will have to decry you as a heretic. Right? The vast amount of music being put out on Bandcamp, including my music, everything that comes out, if people aren't listening to it, it's because it's shite. All right? I didn't realise that until I did this YouTube. Okay? Because I am a bitter musician. I think I'm a pretty good drummer. Right? I'm an okay musician. I think I was a better music teacher than I was a musician. But back then I couldn't stomach that. I didn't want to accept that as an idea. Because I'd spent my whole life learning the drums. Now, a lot of the mistakes I made as a musician was because I thought by having technique and chops more than anybody else, that meant that I should be part of this club, not realising that music isn't entirely about technique. But those idiots that think it's not about technique and feel are also parroting some sort of dogmatic idea of what the art is. That's the authenticity argument. That's the idea that there's something like inherently innate about Leadbelly that makes him great and unquestioned, you know. But Yngwie Malmsteen just playing fast scales all over the place, nah, that's just nonsense. It's got no emotion. It could be just it's too complex for you to really hear it. You don't like it. Maybe it doesn't suit your personality. I don't know. That's an argument for another video, really. But I thought, the thing that I got wrong was thinking that if I had chops, it meant I was good. And I think that's sort of true. I think chops are important. I still think they are, but I have tempered my view on it. Okay, but I thought I deserved a seat at the table. And I got a seat at the table to some extent, but my whole career was thinking, well, why didn't I end up with a big gig? Now, part of the reason I didn't get up the big gig is because of my personality, who I am, right? My self-loathing, which has the flip side of coming across as arrogance. You know, I know enough about self-loathing and anxiety and all that to have actually been able to reach out to people by being honest enough to come on here and be who I am and talk in a way where people recognise. You know, I always feel that the big difference between me and other music YouTubers, that it appears like I'm having a nervous breakdown the whole time on camera. I've had my breakdowns. I've broken down and I've reconstructed myself. I know what I'm doing. I'm not having a nervous breakdown, but it does appear like I'm having a nervous breakdown. And sometimes when I'm on here in a room like this, sitting for two hours just talking into the bloody wall, it feels like I'm having a nervous breakdown. 99% of the music out there is shite. The pop music is crap. The crud that's on Bandcamp that nobody wants to listen to is crap. Those people who are listening to it, the small pockets of audiences that now exist, whether it be the legacy artists or people who are able to pick up something in the past, right, that's habit. That's just what they do. Because everybody wants music in their lives, right? Now, somebody could go and grab a whole bunch of random crap from Bandcamp, and then they could go, this is all I'm going to listen to. And I promise you, if you listen to something over and over again, you usually like it. That fact is the real proof that everything that everyone believes is nonsense. If you listen to anything enough, if I was stuck on a desert island and all I had was Astral Weeks and Wishbone Ash's Argus, I would listen to those albums and eventually I would love those albums. I would come to love them. People need music, but music's really simple. It's just beautiful. It's a very simple art form. It's just beauty that sits there and it sounds nice and it affects us. That's it. You know, most music does that. Have you ever been sat on a Sunday morning in bed and you're lying there with no expectations about the world, and up the road you could hear a kid practicing the piano, and they're playing that piano, and that piano comes wafting in on the breeze, mixed in with the sound of birds chirruping. That's one of the most beautiful sounds there is. And I'll sit there listening to just the notes cascading out into the world, and I realise that music is not about me or you. Music is something that you reveal in the world. And it's there. Now, you may have felt that you have revealed it in some way. And you possibly have. But the fact is, that is not as rare as you think. That's the problem. It's not that your stuff's bad. It's just there's loads of it. It's not a Rolex watch. You understand what I'm doing here now? Can you see the point I'm trying to make? It's not that your stuff's good or bad, it's just that there's loads of it. Why is there loads of it? Because music is basically folk music, right? People make music. Now you have the internet, everyone can make music if they are in the top of that triangle in the capitalist sort of Western liberal democracies where you've got freedom of expression, you've got capitalism, you're comfortable enough to be able to come home and on a Sunday go, well, I haven't got to do anything today, I've got to stay alive today, so I might do a little bit of music for me. And then you have the arrogance to think that that music should be out there and people should be listening to it. Right? Why do I know this? Why do I think this is true? Because at a certain age, when I'd actually reached, I'd come to an absolute crisis of who I was a few years ago, an absolute crisis. Everything had fallen apart, and I felt like I was descending into chaos. Nobody wanted me to teach in their colleges anymore. Nobody wanted me in their bands anymore. Nobody was interested in my music anymore. And I looked into that gaping black chaos and I thought, all these people that used to be my friends, they don't want to help me anymore. I'm in no man's land. I've got a family, I've got to keep going. But here I am, and I thought I was true to who I am. Right? I've been honest. I've done what I've done. And here I am with nobody. Well, it wasn't nobody. I had a few people that were really looking after me. But I was on YouTube chatting away, and I suddenly, unlike my music or my drumming or anything I'd ever done, the talk seemed to be interesting to people. And I did have this thought, maybe what I'm doing on YouTube, I was unable to do on the drums. Big session drummers I know, they're funny people, you know. Their personality, they're usually quite quiet, and they really don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to turn up and just play. That's all they want to do. They don't go around saying they're brilliant on the instrument. They're not arrogant in that way. Well, I can't hardly do anything, can't really do some fill, just bang out and, you know, standard rock beat me. That's all I can really do. They're like that. Right? Perfect to sit, you know, behind some egomaniacal artist and sit there going, I'll just do whatever you want and it'll be nice. And I won't even say I'm like any sort of anything above you. I am subservient and I will never rock the boat. I will never do a fill you out like or a beat that is a bit woo, unless you want me to. Right? That's what session drummers are like. The ones who are in bands, what are they like? They're usually, they had 2 albums that people liked and then nobody likes them anymore. So they just go through life, you know, trading on the fact that they were once in some band, which is quite sad, really. You know, so did I really want any of that? Well, I'll tell you something, I didn't fit into it. And most of you probably wouldn't have fitted into it, being a functional musician or being a cog in some band that had a shelf life of a certain years. Session musicians will go on forever. They'll always work, you see. There's always some work for a session player when there was a music industry. Now that's dying and they're all panicking, you know. They're all panicking. You know, the thing that I wanted when I was young, to have the big gig, be a session player, be a known drummer, be doing the clinics, have the endorsements, hanging around all my mates are famous drummers, everything I wanted, right? They're all sat there shitting themselves now because they got no work. The whole thing has changed round, and here I am actually in quite a comfortable position because, and we get to the last 20 minutes of this, because I have this YouTube. Now you may think I'm some clickbaity fool. You may think that I have pushed ideas that are dangerous. You know, I may have played with all sorts of different ideas, and I'm not honest. It says so. Look in the description on every single video. It said I could be lying, and often I am lying. I'm not on here to tell you the truth, right? I don't necessarily tell you my real opinions ever. What I do is I come on and I create this video. And whereas I used to play instruments to make my music, I now have a camera, a clip-on microphone, a decent light source, and I start talking, right? On this channel, I've gone through the odyssey of making videos which are very, like, high quality in their production, multi-camera shoots, you know, bands in rooms, you know, multi-track recording. You're trying to make an album, you're trying to make a film all at the same time. I've done all sorts of things on this channel. I've played with the medium in a postmodernist way as much as I possibly can. I've tried to turn this idea of the music channel upside down, inside out, you know, back to front. I've tried to do everything. But I tell you something, I've realised that the most powerful thing is this need and want that people have to sit down at the end of the day when they're comfortable and stick not a film on, not an album on, but some bloke chatting away for hours on end, talking about stuff that marginally interests them. you know, in an entertaining way, going off on tangents, you know, like you're in the pub chatting, you know, that lovely feeling you're in the pub chatting to your mates. That's one of the things I have to do. I'm trying to do that here with the most epic video I've ever made. 2 hours of me just talking, no funny graphics, no titles at the beginning and the end, just 2 hours of me talking at you. Right? But I'm trying all sorts of things on this channel. Why? Because I'm trying to cultivate a channel which is entertaining and interesting for people who are interested in music, interested in creativity, interested in music forms that are not the centre, you know, not the normal commercial world. I'm trying to cater for music which has been maligned by the establishment. And once you start to talk about how the establishment maligns progressive rock, jazz rock, fusion, instrumental music and all that, you also get into the ideas of what the establishment believe, and then you have to then challenge that sort of identity politic dogma, which you may agree with, but you'll still have to admit has become the dogma of the establishment. Oh no, the establishment's quite right-wing. Yeah, it is. The establishment's right-wing. But what it is it's right-wing at the top, but what you see is left-wing. Right? I am not a political person in reality. I'm just not really a political person. I've voted for all sorts of people over the years. The artsy-fartsy aspect of myself means that it's sort of the left-wing end of the market for me. But my questioning of identity dogma, right? I don't believe in identity, right? I don't believe that being black is an identity. I don't believe that being gay is an identity. I believe gay is something that human beings do. I could be gay tomorrow if I wanted. I may do, you know, there's nothing wrong with being gay. I might go and be gay tomorrow, but it'll be something I will be doing. It has nothing to do with my identity. That is part of the dogma of this establishment view of the world. Okay? I am questioning that. It doesn't mean that I'm anti some of the ideas in identity politics. There is a big issue at the moment in my country about Jason O'Day, who is a black professor that has been found out to be a plagiarist or alleged plagiarist, and he's lied about, is allegedly, and there's a big thing going on because the real world does not trust the racism inherent in anti-racism that says, no, you can't be racist to white people. We are allowed to have a system where you are prejudiced against white people in the education system to bring in black people into the universities. Now, you may be surprised to know that I think that a pure colourblind, a pure meritocracy system, you could well find that there's hardly any black people in the colleges. Why? Because I think black culture it's been very difficult to critique that. So black culture is holding certain people back. It's got nothing to do with inherent intelligence of the races or any of that racist garbage. I believe that people can, on the whole, you know, what I believe everyone's the same, and I don't believe that academic excellence is just pure IQ either. I think there is something that is contrarian and iconoclastic about the great academics as well. So there's other attributes that aren't measurable, and so I think we have to have some system of favouring black people into education. I actually think that's the case. What it is, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. It can be questioned. The DEI is racist. Without a doubt, it's racist. It's not just racist against white people. It's racist against other races who excel in academic situations. It's the relativism that is the thing that shoots itself in the foot. But you really don't know what my views are on this. You see, you can assume by me criticising something that I might be against that, but it says it down in the description down below. It says in the description down below. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to create a truly liberal discussion of creativity. And I'm trying to introduce the idea that the crisis that we have culturally at the moment may only be solved by the renegotiation of what we think is good. So in other words, we've got to let go of these dogmas that make us think that being authentic is good, or the fact that you've expressed yourself honestly makes it worthwhile, and that because it's worthwhile, it deserves to be out there. You know, to not face up to the fact that the reason why nobody listens to your music is because there is so much stuff out there because of modern technology. It's not needed, even if it's the best music in the world, and that music no longer has anything to say culturally that really matters. That's why AI music can exist. So what do we do about it? I've been to the last 15 minutes. This is the answer. And this is the answer that we have been waiting for over this huge monologue I've just done. We need to have independent points on the internet where this music can be presented in a form which is compelling to the audience. Right? And that is what I'm trying to do here. I come on and I do everything I possibly can to build this channel. Now I could do this from my bedroom, right? I could just have my records behind me and I could set up a light like most YouTubers do, but I haven't, have I? I'm sat in this huge room. I have had to fight to get this room. I have had to fight to get all the recording equipment in. I ain't got enough money to be doing this in reality, but people gift stuff and I have YouTube donations and all this, and people out in the real world are donating money to me, right? I'm gonna shout out a guy called Martin, who knew when he saw my Bitches Brew video that it was great and knew that it was damaging the channel, and gave me money, a considerable amount of money, right, to support me in what I'm trying to do here. What am I trying to do here fundamentally? I'm trying to create a platform for creative musicians, right? I don't want normal bands on here. I don't want commercial music on here. I want to present the act of music making and creating music to the audience. I want to throw away the idea of the album. You can have an album, but the album's a detail at the end of it. What you need to see is the personality, warts and all. Right? Now, I can offer the invitation to 1 million musicians out here to come on here and do that, but they will get frightened. Why will they get frightened? Because they want to present themselves in a perfectionist manner. If they could let go of that, if they could just turn up and trust the process, but they can't. The reason why you as an artist are probably not able to access the world is because you will not let the story of who you are become apparent. Now, you name any artist in the history of mankind where their success wasn't based upon their story being apparent. Their story being apparent and compelling is the reason why every single music artist has been able to reach that audience. Okay, now that's difficult for people to do. If you think I'm saying you've got to come out and show off, have puppets, dress as a chicken, no, you don't. I will do that. I will do that for you, because my talent actually is doing that. I know about music. I know about the history of music. I know how to play a lot of instruments. I know about production. I can come on here and talk about all sorts of different music. I can pull people in by talking about music that other people don't talk about, whether it's Gentle Giant or, you know, the Mahavishnu Orchestra or John Coltrane. And in talking about those artists, I can draw an audience to me that will be conducive to the music I like. And I can present the music that you do here. And I want to do it, but I'm not going to, because what you're doing at the moment is not compelling enough for me to do so. Right? When my old associate said, do you have to dress up as a chicken? You don't have to dress up as a chicken, but you do have to do something that has a story and is compelling, and you do have to communicate that story honestly. And honestly, if you play the game of trying to be what the late 20th century thought was a good person, if you try and do that online now, the actual pomposity and elitism of what you are representing will be apparent. And arrogance will be detected by a society which is moving away from seeing those values, the utopian values of Woodstock, which has atrophied into a whole bunch of theories and practices and ideas and a way of being. And who is the people who embody that? The metropolitan educated elites, the middle classes, the upper middle classes, as I always have done. It's one great big virtue signal. And if you really think that you virtue signaling online is going to pull an audience in, you do not understand how this works anymore. This is democratic. This is powerful, right? This doesn't exist. This has never existed ever before. Right, I am every day shocked at what you can achieve here on YouTube, right? Which is a capitalist enterprise, and they're all interested in just making money, and they've altered the algorithm, and it's, you know, and yeah, we're fighting against them, and they don't care about the arts. That's all true. That's all true. But what can I do about it? Become some justice warrior and demand a revolution? A revolution? No. What I have to do is have to go away and think, how do I deal with the algorithm? How do I go to war with that? That's my job, right? And if it requires puppets and me dressing up as a chicken, I will do it. I will do it for you lot, so that you get a chance to explore this and burrow down. Here we are at, you know, and I've done this deliberately, 2-hour video. This is just the worst thing you could possibly do. You know, here we are at the end of it, and I'm telling you, but you have had to journey to get here, and that makes the information all the more valuable. Great music will have to, I'm afraid, be wrapped up into the esoteric end goal of some sort of strange mystery play that you have to involve yourself to get there. You have to make it valuable again, and by making it valuable, you have to make it rare. And online, that means making it esoteric. You have to get people to burrow down to the bottom of it and discover it. You know, yeah, your music nobody wants to listen to, but if it's in some secret cave where you've got to burrow down through them bloody potholes and just do all that frightening claustrophobia thing to come out into some beautiful, you know, underground chamber where your music exists, then your music has a different aspect, doesn't it? Because the cultural context actually does matter with music. And it's shifting. The cultural context is shifting. You need to tell yourself, yeah, my stuff, nobody wants to listen to it. It's a waste of bloody time. If you're using Bandcamp just to store your stuff so you yourself could listen to it at a later date wherever you are, that is the best use of Bandcamp. But don't expect anybody to listen to it. Don't put it up. It's not worth anything, so don't put any price on it. Put it up for zero amount. Nobody wants it. Right? What you need to do is step back and think, what is the story? What am I saying? What does it mean? And then you've got to go out there and start expressing that. And you need to express that in a way where it's so compelling. And I don't know how that's up to you. I know how I do it on here. And it is dressing up as a chicken, I'm afraid. But don't put down the people dressing up the chickens. Don't be so bloody arrogant to put that down. Because my Bitches Brew video, every musician in there, whether it's Martin Speak or Wendy Kirkland or Pat Sprakes or my friend Sonny Mahindra or BD Lenz or Brian Corbett, you know, or Steve Wilson, I think I've mentioned them all. Every one of those, I don't want them dressing up as a chicken, right? But I want them coming here and engaging in something which is absolutely unique. Because the idea that now Bitches Brew is no longer an album, it's a process that's being filmed. Imagine that. Miles Davis existed now, that would be a process that was being filmed. And Miles Davis wouldn't dress up as a chicken, but he would be compelling. Because like I said, every famous artist is compelling. Are you compelling? Is there a story? What is your story? Who are you? What are you about? Right? Not the virtue signaling you, not the thing that you think you should be, not the perfect idea, not sort of digital buffed up, auto-tuned, on the matrix view of yourself. The real view, right? The view that risks people calling you nasty names, of calling you all sorts of nasty things, of looking down on you, of thinking you're arrogant, or thinking you are, what's the word when you don't want to engage with people, or maybe that you are a racist, or whatever it is. Have you got the guts to stand up and be counted, to have that aspects of you, to be colourful, to be entertaining, right? It's about you. Who are you? Who are you? Because if you go, I can't do this, I can't do it, well, then you need people like me to present you here. That's the answer. If you want to know what, I don't want to play the game, I don't want to do social media, that's not me, it's not me. Well, all right then. Same as you probably didn't want to wear a thin tie in the 80s and dress like an idiot and join a pop band. It's never not been here. What do you want? You ain't going to get what you want. The world's not like that. You are not going to get what you want. Commerciality will never go away. Popularity will never go away. People aren't going to look at your stuff. It's just never going to happen. Just bite it down and swallow it and take it. Right, it's never not been like this. It's never not been like this. Don't assume it should be like it. It can't be like it. It can't be like it. You cannot have some utopia where every musician, whatever they put up online, everybody listens to and thinks wonderful. It's not going to happen. In the same way as that bloody utopia that they believed in at Woodstock's not going to happen. No utopia is going to happen. Forget utopias. Forget death cult utopias. This is the whole point. You have to move away from that. And you have to move to a thing that's, there's no Garden of Eden. There's no noble savage. There's no Rousseauian blank slate that can be made into the perfect human by being trained to not say bad things. It doesn't exist anymore. People love people saying bad things. They love it. Right? Because people want people. They want humanity and they want to deal with it in real terms. That's what they want. They want warts and all. The world is crying out for warts and all. You're going to get more traction being shite and incompetent. You know that. Somebody who's awful online, try and write the worst song you can write. Try and play the worst guitar solo and you'll get more traction. And it's hard to do. You'll suddenly realise it's actually hard to do that as well. Yeah, this is a commercial world. That's why you're comfortable enough. You're either the person that's just making music for their own enjoyment, right, and they stick the stuff on Bandcamp and nobody listens to it. If you want to do that, fine. Just be happy with that. That's it. Don't make videos moaning about it or going on about your little bloody legacy groups from another time that now, a blip, the MySpace generation. They're able to beat the system for about 15 minutes. That's gone as well. The big boys are involved. This is the truth of it. But the light for you is the fact that I'm here doing this and I want to champion this, right? I want to champion this on this channel. That's why I'm here doing the dirty work. How do you get to me? Well, that's the difficult one. That's the gate. That is the gate. I think my next video should be what the equivalent is of the demo cassette. That's the next thing you need to be asking. How do you get out there? Oh, well, I do want to come on your channel and perform. How do you get there? Well, I'm actually opening up the olive branch to you on this video, aren't I? How do you do that? That is for another video. Thanks for watching this video. It was an incredibly long Philosophy Sunday. I hope you enjoyed it. I think we need to bring Lionel on as I just adjust my right hand. So I will finish off with Mr. Lionel the Lion.
Hello there, everybody. Can I just have a quick look at you all? Yes, you all look absolutely lovely. There's not many of you now, is there? There's quite a lot watching at the beginning, but most of them have gone. They probably had to go to the toilet or something. Anyway, my name's Lionel the Lion, and I would just like to say, on behalf of Andrew, thanks for coming and watching this video. If you could put a like on it, and maybe if you could subscribe, and Andrew has a Patreon, and if you ask nicely, he might put some videos of me in the Patreon if you wanted that. He also has a PayPal tip jar, and if you want to support him in his honourable work here of trying to champion strange and weird music in a world that doesn't want it, then put some money in his PayPal tip jar, and he promises not to spend it on a Rolex watch. He'll spend it